Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Levy. I'm the artistic director here at First Stage. It is wonderful to see so many friends, even just in your little boxes. It warms my heart to see y'all. This is an exciting day for us. I want to give you just a little bit of an idea of what we've gathered you here for. When the pandemic started to take the turn where we realized that we were going to be closed for more than just a couple weeks, we were in a fortunate position as a company to know and to make the commitment and to have our board make the commitment that we were going to keep our staff working, that we were going to do everything possible to make sure that the people who are employees of the company continued to work and continue to have their employment and their opportunities. But very quickly, we also recognized that there was a huge part of the First Stage family that was going to be really in a vulnerable position in more ways than one. That all of the artists who call First Stage home, all the artists around the country who work, as I think you all know, are really gig workers. You know, they go from show to show, from job to job. Here in DC, it's not uncommon for people to have their schedules, 9, 12, even 18 months in advance to know sort of what their life is going to be like. And it all got wiped away in, a couple short weeks. And so there was obviously a financial need that was going to come within our community. But also, I think you all know that one doesn't choose theater as a way for financial reasons. Even in the best of times, that money's not great. It's really about a way of life, a way of being, and for our artistic community to be cut off from creating, from performing, from writing, was as painful for many of us as the financial loss was. I really was proud of the conversations that happened early on with the team about how First Stage could be a part of continuing to create, continuing to support artists, continuing to build, not just for this moment, but for the future. We recognized pretty early on that solo work was going to become even more important in the American theater over the next year or two. And of course, the Logan Festival for Solo Performance has been part of our, part of our programming and a special part of our programming for a long time. And we lost that in July. We had to cancel it in July. The team quickly came up with this idea of commissioning a number of artists, both locally and around the country, to create solo work. We created a very long list of folks that we thought could create something really special, and then narrowed it down and ultimately came to this group of artists who are so varied in the way they approach their work. Some of them are experienced solo work performers. Some of them have never done it before. Some of them are primarily actors. Some of them are primarily writers. Some are primarily musicians or directors. Many meet in the middle there somewhere. And we started to create this list of really tremendous artists whose voices we thought were important and who could really help us create work that would be meaningful when we gather again. And decided to create this set of commissions. These commissions asked these solo performers to create a solo work that is meant for the theater. So what you're seeing today is not the way it's meant to be done. Is meant for when we can be back together again. But that's really all that we say. We said probably about a year and a solo piece. And beyond that, we want to hear what you want to make. And the response was really incredible. And we had 11 great and special performers, writers who have come up with really wonderful ideas. We then, this may have been the foolish way to go about it. After we decided all of this, we started reaching out to some of you all and saying, this is what we want to do. It's going to cost a lot of money in the middle of a pandemic when we're not performing and we're not taking any ticket sales in. But we think it's important. And many of you who are on the call here and many people who are not met us immediately with that challenge and helped us to create the financial means with which to put these artists to work. Today is sort of the first showing of any of that. We have today not, I want to be very clear, not a performance of their show, not even a performance of any kind, really. It is an opportunity for them to share a small piece of what they're working on. These artists are very early in the process. Much of this, none of them have a completed show yet. They're still finding their way. But what we wanted during the pandemic was to have an opportunity for you all to come together with us and to get a little insight on how they're building their show. So these are not products, these are process that we're sharing in today. They're going to be reading them. They probably both changed stuff, you know, within the last 24 hours, maybe within the last hour. They're rewriting, they're trying things out. It's really an experiment that's happening. These are the first of what we hope will be many first looks. We have two very brave artists who volunteered to go first on this experiment with us. And I'm going to introduce them, and we'll get to experience their work today, just a little small part of it, and then we'll have a conversation with them about what they're working on and how they're approaching it, and what we can expect in the future. We have two really dear friends with us today. The first one, many of you will know from his performances at First Stage. J.J. Johnson was in Heroes Welcome, and he was one of the last performers to perform on First Stage before we closed down within the award-winning production of The Royale. J.J. is an actor and is also a playwright. And I believe, JJ, this is your first solo work that you're starting on, yeah? And then after JJ, we'll meet Jasmin Cardenas, who's coming to us from Chicago. Jasmin is a theater performer as well as a storyteller. She's been doing a series of interviews and storytelling, and is building it into her solo play. We'll let her talk about that later. And what we'll do is we'll hear a little bit of JJ's, then we'll hear a little bit of Jasmin's, and then we'll go into our discussion. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our friend J.J. Johnson.
The Drummer's Sum. Scene 1. The Pole in the Road.
Lights up. The stage is simple. There is a recliner center where Jim is seated. Downstage right of center is a microphone in the stand.
He didn't want to give up. He was a fighter in that sense. And Mom would tell him, you know, Bill, you're going to have to stop driving. He would say, why? Ain't nothing wrong with my driving. All of us could see that he had driving problems and swerving all over the road and stuff. But he was just determined he wasn't going to quit. She tried to get his doctor to tell him that his eyes were bad and he just wasn't hearing it. So one day, myself, my neighbor Lawrence Morton, and with somebody else, we went with him to the grocery store and just riding, young kids. And he come around, he parked, and we were getting ready to leave, go back home. We got in the car and he just went straight out. And he was going, and as he was going out, he swerved over, and I know one of us said to him, watch out! And he just slammed right into the electric pole. Bam! And he damn it, who put that pole in the road? And he went off cussing about somebody had put that pole in the road. And we were trying to tell him that the pole wasn't in the road. He had run off the side and slammed that pole. He wasn't hearing it. Just shut up back there. Just shut up and stop being stupid. I'm about to throw up laughing, all of us. Yet at the same time, we were trying to hold it because we know he was going to get mad. And we were choking and coughing. It was after that incident I think he realized he had a problem.
Lights fade on Jim in the chair as a light focuses on the microphone.
Scene 2. Hear the drummer come.
Jim transforms to JJ and crosses to the microphone.
Out the gate, the youngest of 8 acclimates
to always being last in line, first to wait, reversed to fate, and became a rough draft on a path that would persevere, built to last. At 6'3", he used to be a tower man. He was power man. Luke Cage with the farmer's tan. He took my mama's hand and she made him an honest man. Now his focus is on the promised land. You understand, son of a preacher man. It's a part of who I am, but Jim's journey to God was not a part of the plan. Growing up in the degradation of segregation, Jim Crow dealt a blow to Jim's whole education. Had tons of fun, from thugs with guns to drugs and drums to hugs, from sunset to sunrise to drum set. Had Jim testing how funky the drums get. Give the drummer some. Stand up on your feet. Throw your hands up, but please take a seat. Where that drummer from? Clap, dance, and have fun. Respect the beat and give the drummer some. Though the streets called his name, the beats did the same. A tug of war galore, way more on his brain. This or that, this or that. An angel on his shoulder, the devil on his back. On the level to attack, a rebel ready for combat. A vessel wrestling for a life with better things. A wedding ring for a girl who's 16, no room in her womb as I started to bloom. Honeymoon phase over before it began. Already a husband and father and barely even a man. Now it's back to life and back to reality. Now Jim's got a wife and is starting a family. The abnormality of his salary is a tragedy. Striving for an ever after that they can live happily. But fairy tales and fantasies are only a fallacy. Got my father reeling in the grips of gravity. Here my daddy come. Stand up on your feet. Throw your hands up, but please take a seat. Where that daddy from? Clap, dance, and have fun. Respect the streets and give my daddy some. Scene 7. Shades of Soul. Central Junior High was a good experience for me. It was at Central where I first got to watch Taylor High School band practice out in the fields. That was like, wow. From there, I got to meet Mr. Lightfoot. He invited me to audition for the band at Taylor when I was in Central. Mr. Lightfoot took a liking to me. I got to join Taylor High School band when I was at Central. And then when I got into Taylor and started acting up, I got kicked out of all my classes but band. So I ended up with 5 classes of band and 1 study class. So that's where I learned to play the trap set because of Tommy Chittister, who was known as one of the best drummers of the day back in them times. Then Mr. Lightfoot had me working on all the instruments, repadding the saxes. I learned to pluck a little of the bass, just doing all the bandroom work, because he said, if you're going to be too ignorant to go to class, then you're going to learn to do this. When I got into Shades of Soul, I never thought after Mama bought me them drums, I would play for a band. More or less the Shades of Soul, which was the highest known band, I would say, between Washington, Virginia, Maryland. Shades of Soul was up there, man. The first night I was in that band was the night that William died. William, now his AKA was Junior. He carried what they call a Slim Jim. A long knife, real slim. And he would cut you with that sucker. He would fight in a minute. He was just tall in the bone, but just ornery as cracky. He was too small to go into the military. Eat like a hog, but could never gain weight. A few things I hold in my mind about him, in my heart. When I got old enough to hang out on the streets, I remember we were down on 3rd Street, and they were gambling, shooting dice, and I got in the game. He came up the street walking and saw me in the game, walked up and said, "What you doing, boy?" And I said, "I'm shooting dice." He grabbed the dice out of my hand and threw them down across the parking lot and said, "Don't you ever let me catch you shooting dice." The second thing I remember, before he died, maybe a year or so, he started going to church every Sunday. He walked to church. He would walk to church. None of us went to church, the boys. He started going up to Mount Zion by himself. The day that he died, I had just bought a new fishing reel, set it down in the building, and I came home from school. He had it setting up with his stuff. I was about 16 at the time, and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "Me and Charles going fishing." And I said, "But you ain't taking my rod." He was, "Oh, yes, I am." And him and I got into an argument, and I said, "I ain't even fished with the rod myself." And he was mouthing at me, and I said, I hope you go somewhere and die. They got in a canoe, and so as I understand, either him or Charles stood up, and it flipped. Now this pond had a lot of great big fish, but it was just a grass pond. When we fished in the pond, maybe it was the day before that, got in the same canoe. It was an island out in the middle of the pond. We would take the canoe and go across the pond and get on that island and fish, but the canoe had a hole in it. So when you got in the canoe, you had to canoe fast enough to get over there before it got too much water and the back end go down. Now, I don't know about Charles, but I know William knew. We were told they were with 3 other guys, and I understand a fight broke out. And these guys were relatives of Charles, our cousin Charles's wife's brothers. And that was a controversy going on for a long time, but the police wouldn't investigate it. But these guys possibly pushed them into the pond and then set the canoe out. The reason I could believe that scenario was because we went down there early the next morning. The canoe was pulled up to the bank, but the fishing worms and other things they had in the canoe was still in the canoe. It was 1969. Mom and them kept trying to push the police to investigate it, and they just said it wasn't enough claim for them to open up an investigation. So if they did it, them boys got away with murder, and we lost a brother and a cousin at the same time. William was just 19. Myself and cousin Bubba were the 2 they sent to identify them at the hospital. They were still soaking wet. And to look at them both laying there, it was like looking at 2 sleep people, but you know they dead. Charles and all of us was close, like brothers instead of cousins. And I turn and see William laying there. And at first it was just like a blank. And I walked over and I touched his face. I noticed on this side his face is ripped open. They said they gag hooked him in that pond. One of the hooks caught him like that. The next time I went to school, I come home that evening, and it was almost sort of like a ritual. William would be around the house there somewhere. But when I walked in the house and sat down in that old house, I felt that loss. I felt he was going to come out the downstairs door. He was going to come in the house. I walked outside looking around the yard. That went on for weeks. Seeing his clothes. He had this one shirt he wore, like pullover thing. It was like a brown tan color. Prince. He liked that shirt and it looked good on him. That shirt laid there and it was just so empty without him in it. And it laid there probably until we burnt the house down. Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. I tell you, one of the things that I think I miss most is the applause, the curtain call. We don't have a way to really show you, JJ, all the love we want to send you for that, but that was amazing. Thank you so much. And we're going to keep on going. I'm going to introduce you all to Jasmin Cardenas and let her show you a little piece of what she's been working on. Jasmin.
It's a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. For the last 4 years, I've been working with low-wage working Americans, moms and dads who are hired by temp staffing agencies and sent out to work at factories where they bottle your Victoria's Secret hand cream, assemble your box of chocolates, bake and package your Burger King croissant, pop and package your popcorn, and make and bag the masks that we're all wearing that protect us in this pandemic. We've been using theater to tell their stories. I got to know this organization called the Chicago Workers Collaborative right here in Chicago, and I asked them if I could offer a theater workshop for their members. This one workshop that I did 4 years ago was so well received that the workers just snowballed into this desire to do more and more. And one workshop turned into two, and then it turned into weeks and then months. And now we are here 4 years later. We spend our time critically analyzing their situations and problem solving moments of wage theft, exploitation, and abuse. We practice possible solutions based on their own experiences to help imagine and create a more just future. This treatment that they experience at work, it's cruel. Their working conditions are unsafe and they make less than minimum wage. Their positions are insecure and they fall in between the cracks of society that society has created to allow both the employer, their temp staffing agency, and the host company, the factory where they actually work, to wipe their hands from any responsibility when a situation arises. Oh, your issue didn't happen here on this location. You'll have to go talk to management over there. So we perform out in public parks and church basements and libraries, and we perform to other workers who are experiencing some similar experiences of wage theft and sexual harassment. But we anchor it in elements of education, know your rights campaigns. While also we perform not just for those low-wage workers, but professional Chicagoans, at private events that we get invited to the consumers who are purchasing the products so that these atrocities can come out of the shadows and people can see what's happening right in our city. Factories that have union labor are required to move temp workers into permanent hire positions after 90 days. So temp agencies often tout the line, hiring temp to perm, when they recruit workers, but they rarely explain how that actually plays out for the worker. While the most vulnerable in our populations are exploited, it's not just those Latino immigrants or the Latino or African American returning citizens trying to find a job fresh out of prison and they're with a record. That's tough. But professional, educated Americans are also experiencing a level of disposability that we as professional, well-educated workers are not used to. Lawyers, tech, scientists, teachers, and others are being affected by this trend of corporate America to move towards a more choice economy, contractors for hire, and the gig economy. Gone are the days of normally, beginning and entering a company and with full benefits pay, 25, 30 years later, retiring with the benefits and a pension. This has ultimately shifted the sands underneath middle-class America, creating a totally instability in social class, and current generations are having a harder and harder time of staying in the social class that they grew up in. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of workers, all of which I've worked with here in Chicago. Margarita, 46 years old, an immigrant from Mexico, a Spanish speaker. Pues el reitero estaba manejando. The van driver was driving lejos, muy lejos, fuera de Chicago. Yo pregunté, ¿cómo se llama la fábrica? The name of the factory. You want the job or not? Sí, quiero. I want job. What time you pick us up? So no, you don't want the job. I could have brought somebody else. I need to know time. Mija, my daughter, babysitter. La señora behind me whispers. Regresamos a las 3:30, señora. Oh, muchas gracias. Thank you, señora. Muchas gracias. 3:30. Gracias. Okay, 3:30. Gracias. I was squished. En van, estábamos bien apretados. So many men and women. Una chiquita flaquita, a girl probably 18 years old, had to sit on a man's lap. Because she was last and no more room. Pobrecita, estaba tan incómoda. She no liked sitting on his lap. Ese estúpido, haciendo bullas con ella en sus piernas. Hey. I was so mad, squished but happy in my seat. Pero ese estúpido. Al regresar, yo le dije a la muchacha, de regreso, mamita, tú se sientas conmigo, ¿ok? I tell her when we go home, she sit with me, ¿ok? Esquerado. Disrespect. The noises he make. The raitero drives us, nos llevas atrás. He take us back door. Always back door of la fábrica. No name. A woman opens the door, and we enter like 22 workers, and somos muchos. Abrimos la puerta y parece una jaula. Esa puerta parece una jaula. It's a cage door. She unlocked, and we go in, and ella cerró con llave cerró. And she looked, it's dark. It's a long hallway. It's long and dark. Y caminamos y la luz prendía. The light on, and we walk in dark and light on. And behind, light off. It's dark and long. Another door, a cage. She opened the gate and open, and we go, and she locked again. And we walk. It's dark. Es muy largo ese camino. Finally, we arrive, and last door, workers are ready to leave, and we arrive. I follow girls to a break room and put my chaqueta in the locker, and we go. Machines are fast, moving fast already. I no tengo explicación. Busco la muchacha para decirle, she's leaving. No explanation. I get in line and watch hands. Todo es muy rápido. Son dulces. Candies. We box candies, and I follow workers' hands. Como a las 2 horas, like 2 hours later, pregunto, ¿aquí hay baño? Is there a bathroom? No, it's locked, they say. Wait for break. So we work. It's fast, the machine fast. But I hold, and we work. And the machine's fast. Al fin, ding, ding, ding. Yo voy rápido al baño. Allí solo dan 30 minutos. I get my phone to call babysitter and tell her at 3:30 we come home. Pero aquí no hay señal. ¿Su celular trabaja? No work. Ay, no phone. I eat fast porque 30 minutes fast, and too many people in line for a micro, so I eat cold, fast. Al fin, finally, we go back, and 4 hours pass, and we work, finally, bell. I'm so happy to leave. No windows, cages. And I go to leave, and the woman unlocked cage, and she come with 2 men. Y nos chequeó por toda parte. Nos tocó por toda parte. No me toques. They think we steal candies. He touched everywhere. I no steal candy. Yo no soy ratera. I'm no thief. Dean, 40 years old, a Caucasian biomolecular scientist. I got my PhD at the University of Chicago in biochemistry and molecular biology. So as a graduate, I had a very good healthcare, but still we did not know what was wrong with my daughter. So when I graduated, I only had 30 days left of health benefits, and my daughter was very sick, and we didn't know what was wrong with her. The doctors could not figure it out. And I was scattershot applying for any jobs, because basically I had to get a job that could start paying these medical bills that would begin to stack up. So the last day at the university, I get a call that I had gotten a job at the pharmaceutical company. They're the company that makes Humira. That's their flagship drug. And I had gotten the job there as a contractor. You know, it was one of those things where okay, I have to take this job. I have 2 kids, I have a wife, we have to pay rent, we have to figure out what's wrong with my daughter. And, uh, you know, it's good money compared to my graduate student stipend. So, okay, I'll take this. It's a temporary position, but in a few months I'll get hired as a permanent. The company has very good health benefits. The package, excellent pension plan. So I just thought, why wouldn't I take this job? So I was given a 2-year working contract at that pharmaceutical company, but I was employed by a temporary staffing agency. See, what I do is drug discovery, very early stage drug discovery. Like right now, I'm working on COVID therapeutics and HIV therapeutics and Alzheimer therapeutics. I hopefully will be able to use these at some point to cure incurable diseases. I love what I do. When I'm at the lab, we're all scientists, just scientists working on the same bench. Big fluorescent lit room, gleaming white floors. The lab bench is about kitchen counter height, you know, test tubes, filters, whatever you need above. The only way in or out of the lab is with a name badge. And it's got the name of the company and then your name. And then right underneath that is my staffing agency's name. And below that, a long red stripe that identifies me as a contract worker. The full-time scientists have a green stripe. It's the only identifier that clearly marks who is a contract employee. No, I never go back to that candy factory. A mí no me gusta que me estén encerrando en esas fábricas. I don't like the factories that lock you in. This factory is better. It's better. It's better now with Don Rodrigo is gone. Don Rigo, pues lo descansaron. Asqueroso. The way he look at us, always here and not here. Nosotros trabajando, we working on the line, and he touch us. Was back there. I say, don't touch me. I almost lost my job. Don Rico, he's a good friend with the manager. He believe him when he say he do nothing. And the other compañeras say, see, the other compañeras, the workers with me, they say, she says, see, he touch us. Only cause I scream, and they finally say something. Luego todas comenzaron. So many girls together speak up. And that's why he gone. Pero desafortunadamente descansó a Doña Arlinda. Unfortunately, he fired Doña Arlinda. She was like a grandmother, una abuelita a todas las muchachas. She was a hard worker. He said to her, váyase, porque no me das rendimiento. Tu trabajo, vieja, lenta. We all stopped. Irrespetuoso. No respect to speak to Doña Arlinda like that. This. She worked fine. She worked fine, I say. She fine. I help online. I help. Again, he called her a stupid old lady. Too slow. Doña Arlinda need this job. We know that she all alone. Her son died long time ago, and her daughter, pues, she's married a un muchacho que no es buen esposo. He's no good husband. Pobrecita Doña Arlinda. But see, yes, it's better here. I can work más horas and more hours. Before, every 3 months, they give us un descanso. 1 month vacaciones, vacation, a rest from the factory, and they send us to other factory because we not allowed to get permanent position. But now it's better. They give 2 cards. So I punch with 1 card for 35 hours, and then 35 is full, and I punch with other card more hours, 20 hours. A different agency name, the same agency. So no overtime, but it's good money. It's good money. So I took the second contract. I've been with this company now for 3 years. Every time my contract comes up for renegotiation, I'm told that the company wants to keep me on. I'm a good worker. I've been able to negotiate raises. Because I'm a good worker. However, I'm not a good enough worker or employee to get vacation time, sick time, retirement account, a pension plan. The frustrating thing is that even though I make a decent salary, I make $84,000 a year. The people that I work with on the bench doing the same job, their starting salary is $100K. They get those benefits, and all those costs, they're externalized onto me. So yeah, I've been here for 3 years, but every night I go home and I don't have any guarantee that I'm going to wake up to a job the next morning. So I took that second contract, and the way the furlough situation is that here you work for those 2 years and they make you take a 30-day furlough and then another contract, so they can claim that they don't use long-term temp labor. What happens is that by the time you're about a month away from being furloughed, you're pretty positive that getting that full-time position with benefits is not going to happen. And we're like, especially as scientific workers, right? We're good at collecting evidence, drawing conclusions, and making patterns with those things. That's what we've been trained to do. One day I was dropping off some of my samples to another scientist who was going to process them and run some tests on them. I said, hey, I got my furlough coming up, so I'm going to be gone for about a month. He says, hey, so I had my furlough a couple months ago, so why don't we sit down for a second and talk about it? What are you going to ask for as an increase in your hourly rate when you come back? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? He said, they're going to offer you the same exact contract, the same exact rate that you're making now, unless you ask for more. What you need to do is make a spreadsheet. Figure out what it is that you've been making per hour. You need to factor in a 2-year, 5% cost of living increase, and figure out what that increase is per hour. You also need to figure out that you'll be furloughed for 30 days and factor in those lost wages. Figure out what that newly hourly wage is, and then you need to ask for $3 more than that. So I built my spreadsheet, and later I showed it to him. Yeah, this is all really well laid out. This makes the case that what you're asking for is not an exorbitant raise, but it is what would be expected if anyone that's getting an increase in wages is way less than the full-time employee would ask for. But there's nothing too dramatic in what you're asking for. So I did. I took that to my supervisor, and it worked exactly as he said it would. So when there is a newer temp, we sit down with him. We share these exact same strategies with him. It's what we do. So why am I telling you these stories today? Why do I care, you might ask? Because I know that the only difference between myself and those low-wage workers is that my dad, a Colombian immigrant, was able to get into the electrical union here in Chicago, local IBEW 134, which provided job stability, a living wage, and benefits. When my dad hurt himself working, falling off a ladder, he was able to take time off and recover, paid. We didn't lose our house because he couldn't pay his bills. He was able to afford enrichment activities for my brothers and I, ballet classes, soccer uniforms, karate classes. He paid for Catholic school education for all 3 of us. But he worked on union jobs as a non-union hire for 14 years before he was able to get in. And it wasn't given to him. He had to persist. My dad is retired. He has a pension. Doña Arlinda, she's the same age as my dad. She still has to go to the factories where they disrespect her and DNR her. Do not return her. Because she doesn't no da rendimiento, because she doesn't work fast enough. At 74, she's still heading into those factories. As a college-educated professional who is regularly invited to speak at universities and about my theatrical practice or hired to perform as a touring artist, I have no job security. I have no health insurance if it wasn't for my husband's job. And I have no retirement or pension building up because I'm a gig artist. Society has decided that some of us are more disposable than others, and we don't deserve job stability. But the thing is, this past year, while America has been quarantining in their homes as professionals, the thing that's gotten them through are the movies we make, the TV shows we write, that we act in, that we film, produce, edit, direct, and costume. It's the music that we create, that we write, that we record, the instruments we play, the choreographies we dance, the stories that we tell. Our artistic industry is entirely dependent on actor flexibility. Luckily, I'm a SAG-AFTRA actress, a union member, but I don't really make enough to currently grow a retirement account or qualify for our health insurance plan. So even though I'm able to do high quality work, I'm stuck in a system that wasn't created with a net for me and for those like me. And we are millions of Americans. Thank you.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Jasmin. Thank you so much. Thank you, JJ. Thank you all for being witness to the sort of the birth of this process. It's been really exciting for us. First stage, we sort of play midwife in here. The creation is all happening with these commissionees who are doing all of the really hard work, but to keep that sort of moving forward and to nurture it in the way that we hope we are, it has been a ton of work, and that's only been possible because of our beloved Associate Artistic Director, Deirdre Starnes, who said, make sure to introduce me good when you introduce me. So I'm doing my best. Dee has been so instrumental in working with all of these artists and putting today together and all of the future events that we look forward to. Dee's just turned her camera back on. She and I are gonna co-moderate a little conversation here. So Dee, welcome. JJ, if your camera's on as well. And Jasmin, thank you as well. We're so honored and thrilled to have you all working with us over this year and for sharing this work with us. So thank you both. We're going to ask a couple of questions, Dee and I are, and then we're going to turn it over to anybody in this group that has questions for them. It can be about their shows, about their process, about what this last year has been like for them. You can just send Ariel, our host, a message in the chat, and she'll let us know that you have questions, and we'll make sure to call on you. So thank you all. We'll get to your questions in just a moment. I'll turn it over to you, Dee.
Hello, everyone. I can't tell you how exciting it is to have you all in this space with us. We talk all the time about how much we miss our audience, how much we miss our supporters, and miss being able to bring stories to them that change lives and that inform. But Alex, in his genius, when we started talking about the commission work, this was such an exciting venture for us to take with amazing. We have 11, so these two are 2 of 11, phenomenal. And I just want to say, JJ and Jasmin, you delivered with aplomb. You really did. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. I've seen a little bit, I've read a little bit, but it was so different being in the space with you. And I'm so grateful for you and so grateful to you. I am just meeting Jasmin during this time for the first time, and I've fallen in love with her. And when I grow up, I want to be her because she's just a beautiful person inside and out. And JJ and I go so far back. My kids know him. So it's so exciting to have these 2 phenomenal artists. Jasmin, I want to start with you. I was listening to your story about the immigrant worker, and I wanted to know, how did you feel listening to this story? Because, in this time that we're in, and all of the inequities that have just been, just in the forefront of our existence with the pandemic and people being able to be tuned into what's happening in the world. How was it affecting you in the moment as you were sitting there listening to those stories? How did you keep it together? And how were you able to create this beautiful art in the midst of all this trauma?
Thank you, Dee. Honestly, we do a lot of laughing and crying together. Our team is all low-wage workers. None of them have been performers in their lives. And just telling their stories is a very cathartic experience and thus a very healing experience for them because nobody listens to their stories. And when they go home at night, unfortunately, their husbands and brothers and fathers and sisters are all experiencing similar cruelty. And so they don't necessarily share with each other. They just swallow this. So when they get to speak these stories, when they get to share these moments, or someone else in the group shares the moment, for the first time, somebody else realizes, "Oh, that happened to me too." And it's when we begin to understand the systemic oppression that they're all experiencing, but they think it's a personal problem. That manager just doesn't like me. The supervisor's just, I don't speak enough English, whatever it might be. Or it's a low wage worker who's come out of prison and they're scared to speak up because they don't want to lose a job because they can't get another job. And so it's really hard. I actually realized that I was experiencing a lot of trauma just constantly hearing their stories. And I actually put myself in therapy about a year and a half or 2 years into it because I'm not a therapist and I don't use the technique in therapeutic ways. It just happens to be that out of the work, a lot of therapy happens. But I'm very careful not to ask people to share more than they're able to or prepared to. Certainly never forcing anyone to speak up at all. It's just that they find the courage to speak up because someone else has spoken up a little. So it's been a really, like, I'm not kidding when I say we are crying or laughing hysterically. There is great healing that happens with laughter. So play is a huge and important part of the work that I do with the workers because they never get to play.
Alex, you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, no, thank you. JJ, I know that you have spoken to me about really being interested in representations of Black men that we don't get to see enough in film and TV and theater. And you've chosen to center your show about your father and a very personal story. And I was wondering if you just share with us a little bit about what about your father and his story makes him so special, and what about it was a story that you felt like we should be seeing on a stage.
I guess, as I got older and became aware of stories that are being told and I guess narratives that are out there, knowing that there were elements of my father's life that could be attributed to stereotypes, or someone could look at one part of him and say, oh, like he was a thug, or and feel like they can dismiss that or dismiss the whole person because of this one time of his life, or one event or whatever. But my father, and both my father and my mother, they were young. My mom was 16 when they married, and and he was 21. She had me when she was 17, but they endured and beat a lot of odds, and they're still married. I mean, it'll be 47 years this year, and they're just as cute and adorable now, but it's just they endure, and so it's like what started out as something that could have been disastrous. It worked because of the work that they do, because of faith. A lot of things played into it, but I think it was just he started in one place but ended in another. And it's a journey. And so it's like we often don't get to see the fullness of Black men, particularly, and that's what I want to see, the full. And I grew up seeing Black fathers, like and I grew up in, poor neighborhoods, but there were Black men out there who were there all the time with their kids. But that's not the narrative, and so it's just like, I know that narrative is BS. And now I have this opportunity to I'm going to focus on my dad. But in focusing on my dad, just, hopefully ring some bells and let people know, that he's not the only one, that there are people who are very complicated. Like they may have had parts of their lives that, they're not proud of at this moment, but they find ways to navigate and to overcome.
Thank you, JJ. We will, just a reminder, folks, to go ahead and put into the chat if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, and Ariel will let us know. You know, Jasmin, one of the things that you mentioned to me the other day was, or I guess when we first started talking, was this discovery of the expansion of the gig worker. And of course, we see that in that representation of the molecular biologist who's still a gig worker. And I wonder if you might just tell us a little bit about, you know, what your discovery of the workforce has been as you've sort of, the blinders have come off and you've seen more and more.
Absolutely. Well, first, let me say that the first discovery was in working with our workers theater group, was that I was a temp worker just like the workers. Because I don't have one employer, because I'm always on the hustle for the next paycheck, every single gig that I do is a new gig. It requires new papers, new, you know, the W-2, the 1099, like it's, every job is a different, every gig is a different gig. And if something happens to me, I don't necessarily have any protection. And that was the first real discovery that I had, was that, holy shit, oops, sorry. I too am just like them. It just happens to be that I am an artistic gig worker. I'm an artistic temp laborer. And that was a really important discovery. And then as I began to have more conversations just in my life, I started hearing friends who were in fact professionals. I knew that, like, we'd gone to college together or what it might be, that who were really desiring to have a job with full-time benefits, but were constantly in this contract position. And I started asking questions, and that's when I realized, oh, it's just called a different word. They just, instead of it being a low-wage temp worker working out of a temp staffing agency, they're a contract hire gig worker at this tech agency like Google's, like the Googles of the world. And they have zero stability, and they really would like to have insurance. And so for me, that was a huge moment, because it blew my mind to realize that corporate America is always sizing things up for their better gain. And that regardless of how hard we as individual Americans try to work, be it like the molecular biologist who has so much to get ahead and have job stability, none of that is guaranteed, because the system has been designed to keep us in this receiving little, and there's always going to be profit to be gained. So that for me was really important. I just when I realized it, I thought, I don't think people think like this, and I would like for us to change that narrative. I would like us to ask the questions: who should be making those profits? Where should that profit go? Why is it millions of dollars, and how many yachts do you need? How many mansions how many islands do you have to buy when the people that are helping go to the doctor when they're sick? I was really moved by this worker, Dean, whose daughter has her disease for a really long time, and who was, you know, dependent on having health insurance because it would have bankrupted their family to not be able to afford to take their daughter to the hospital.
So JJ, you know more than anyone, I'm a huge fan of your father and your mom. But you know that. And so when I started reading your work and I saw The Drummer, I thought about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And what was it that made you make that parallel between your dad and the drummer?
Well, it's the fact that he is a drummer, literally, and that was like the core of his, when he was a teenager, that's what he did. And also just the fact that my younger brother, is a drummer, and like it skipped over me. So it's like I was surrounded by drummers on both sides, and I love drumming. I love watching drummers work. So I think, and then just thinking about rhythms and rhythm and how that's so ingrained and a part of our existence as Black people and hip hop. And so like just all of that stuff is just kind of mixing around in my head. And because from the drummers that I know, and when I was in band, the percussionists, they kind of, you know, marched to the beat of their own drum. But like they were very different people. They were different than the trombonist or the, you know, the trumpeters. They were very much like there was a certain type of personality. And I think my dad kind of exemplifies the drummer, kind of marches to his own beat, and yeah, and it's kind of just the way he's always been.
That's great.
Great. I want to ask one last quick question and then let Dee wrap up. And that's just for both of you, JJ and Jasmin. I'd love for you to sort of imagine us back in a theater again, and the solo show and the connection between audience and performer. And if either or both of you might just speak to, as you think about building a solo show, what is special, what is unique about solo work, either as an actor or performer or as a writer or both. How do you think about it when you envision solo work, and what is special about it?
Oh, the dreaming of returning to the stage. I don't know if you want to go first, JJ, but
Please.
I honestly like I love the opportunity to have the intimacy with the audience that you experience on stage, especially when you're doing a solo piece. It's like you are in this together. That I can't get from A to Z without you. We have to go together, and there's that wonderful relationship with the audience. I selfishly am really excited about jumping in and out of different characters and being an actor again. I really miss acting, and I love in this short snippet you're missing at least 2 or 3 other characters that are in the script so far that I didn't have enough time to share with you, but it's really fun to do character work, and that's like a joy of mine as an actor, is to get to play. So I really love that.
I think it's the challenge of it, because this is my first time doing solo work, and I've always preferred to do scenes and work with other actors on stage. Like when I have a monologue, I'd much rather, like, I'm not a fan of doing monologues. I like interacting with people. And so I think with solo work, it gives me a chance to make the audience my other person. So I can't really escape, you know, and you know, hide behind the fourth wall and be in the scene with other actors. But you know, I get to actually engage with the audience. And you know, my dad is very much a people person. And so like I get to tell this story, but also there are parts of it where I want to have Dad interact with the audience. And so I just kind of want to play around with that. I guess the prospect of playing around with that, and telling the story that I want to tell, like that freedom, because you know, up to this point, I've been employed to do scripts from other people and to tell other stories, and so now I get the chance to tell a story that I want to tell, and that's personal, and bring that to an audience.
So much. So it's a little after 3, but we do have 2 questions, and we really want to give our supporters an opportunity to ask our artists some questions. We have one from Rebecca Perez and one from Jerry Eisner. And Ariel, if you could unmute Rebecca and then Jerry so they can ask their question.
Certainly. Let me find them. There's so many lovely people in this chat. It's just so nice. Let's see. Uh-oh, it looks like we may have lost Rebecca. So let's go and see if Jerry is still here.
He is.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, excellent.
First of all, thank you for doing this. It was beautifully done. Very emotional. Yeah, I guess maybe I'm asking a redundant question now that I've heard some of the questions that you've already answered, but how do you see your plays working out on stage? are you going to go from solo? I wasn't sure I caught exactly what you're doing. Are you going from solo to having, like, say, a family coming? What is scene one going to look like? Or is it going to just be solo? Not that that's terrible. I mean,
It's funny that you asked that, Mr. Eisner, because when I was actually putting pen to paper and building it, I realized, gosh, this is like a full play with lots of characters. How am I just going to do it as a solo show? I felt limited by the solo component of it. But yes, this version is definitely going to be a one-person show. And I do think of it kind of like you're suggesting, like there's first scene one, scene two, scene three, and that the characters might return like they did in this little snippet that you saw. So you don't see them just one time, but you get a little bit each time you see them. But it's so in development that I'm not entirely sure. But this is definitely going to be a solo piece. I'm excited about the challenge of taking on multiple characters.
Is that a question for me as well, or?
yeah.
Okay.
In fact, it's 3 J's, JJ and Jasmine. So.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, it's a solo piece. Right now, it's just I'm playing myself and my father, and just kind of going back and forth, and that's what it is for right now. I have had the idea, and my brother doesn't know this, but I've wondered, like, in some way, at some point, maybe having him on the drums to do the beats for the rap. Or for the rap, there's actually two right now, two songs. So I don't know. I'm still kicking that idea around. Like if my brother would agree to that at some point, maybe. So it might be neat.
Thank you.
And I think we have one more. Yes, Ariel?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm afraid I don't know how to pronounce your name properly. Is it Tuyet Pham?
Close enough. Close enough. So I just wanted to ask, only because we've been away for so long, how do you think an artist can contribute to a community's healing from a traumatic event, or from what do you feel your piece will offer a community in this state?
Mm-hmm. Is that for one of us in particular, or just for both of us in
No,
general?
for both. I think I'd love to hear from you both if you're willing.
I was just going to say that I mean, and I'm actually pointing towards Jasmine. Like I feel like your piece particularly, it feels so current and so now. Like I think it's important at any time to let a community know that you're seen, and so I feel like that's especially what your piece does. So I think, whether it's pandemic or not, I feel like your piece is so important. And so, like in giving voice to a community that, right now could use as much amplification as possible. So that's what I see for Jasmine. And I'm not speaking for you. You could definitely answer, but that's just what I...
I love you, JJ, because that's the word that voiceless is the word that keeps coming to my heart when I work with the workers. It's not that they don't have a voice, it's that they purposely are muted in society. They have beautiful voices. They have incredible cultural histories. They have powerful offerings for society, for parenting, for the work environment that they go to. They are highly skilled, even as they're called unskilled workers. I would beg anyone to put a college educated master's degree, somebody who's writing their dissertation on whatever they're writing on, to go stand on one of these factory lines and see if they can hack a full day. They are highly skilled individuals in having grit and having personal power and courage to figure it out, even when no one gives them direction, like the character Margarita, when she showed up at the factory and no one bothered to tell her on her first day what she's doing. So I love that theater is a form to amplify voice. And I love this opportunity to be able to say what's happening to the low-wage worker is not just their problem. It's all of our problems. And what's happening to the working professional, people are ashamed. They don't want to tell their story because they're embarrassed. And it's not okay. That no one should be embarrassed for being taken advantage of. And so, I've had professionals that I've been asking people to interview them. And I say, we can be totally anonymous because people are embarrassed. They have X years of study, $150,000 in student loan debt to pursue a career that they're passionate about, but they're not being given the respect that they deserve, just like the low-wage worker who deserves respect and dignity in their workplace. And so for me, it's about amplifying their voice. But as a performer, I really don't love performance for performance sake. So my show, when it's ultimately finished, will have an engagement component for audience, so that if it moves you and you can get involved, then I'm going to ask you to sign a petition. I'm going to ask you to donate to that company or to go volunteer at your local, organization. I'm going to have action items because I really want the audience to feel like, okay, let's change this. Maybe not everyone's going to be maybe not everyone's going to agree with me, and I'm okay with that. I'm willing to hear what other people say, but I think that all working people deserve dignity, and I think we can give that. When companies are making billions in profits, Jeff Bezos made more money than anyone ever on the global planet, and yet I interviewed Amazon workers who are under signature to not be able to talk about it, who've signed things to not be able to talk about it. So yeah. And if you feel like this is a story that resonates for you and you had this experience, I'm going to ask you to be willing to maybe interview you, if you have a child, a grown adult, or a neighbor who maybe fits this bill, who desired to have a full-time position somewhere and was stuck in this contractor work. I would love to speak to them because I'm still trying to flesh out the show, and I need some more professional voices to help me do that. I think Dee or Ariel will share.
Ariel's
Yeah, it's
putting
right
in the
there.
chat for folks, a place where you can sign up to do so. So absolutely, please do.
Yes, definitely. And I'm sorry, Jasmine?
I was just going to say, if people just want to be anonymous, they can write a story or anecdotal moment of their lives. But if they're open to being interviewed, the only person that receives this Google form is me, because I developed it. And if you gave me your phone number or your email address, I would reach out to you. I don't have like a huge team of people I'm going to mass market your private information to. It's just me.
So, JJ, there's one more question, and our dear beloved Joan is going to ask you a question that I personally love this question that she's getting ready to ask you. Joan, you're unmiked.
Okay, first I have to thank you both for your beautiful presentations up to this point, and I know so much more is going to be coming. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Jasmine. You really moved me, honestly. JJ, I wanted to know what made you incorporate the rap part, which I loved, by the way. I just thought that was right on. That was wonderful.
Thank you. I think a lot of it was just because I am just a diehard fan of hip hop. We grew up together. I was born in '75, so it became like we merged when I got like 5 or so, like when I became aware of it. And this is very much a part of who I am and in my being. And so many of my friends are like hip hop theater people. And plus just the idea, like I said before, like the rhythm and drumming and because I can't play drums, because in the ideal show, I would be able to play drums and like incorporate that, but you all wouldn't want to hear that. So instead of playing drums, I'm going to do some raps.
Well, you rapped the hell out of it. It was fabulous.
Well, thank you so much, John.
Good to see you again. And nice to see you again, Jasmine. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Thank you all for allowing us to go over time, but it was so worth it. We have two amazing artists, and there's more where that came from. This is 2 of 11. So we have 9 more artists that are going to grace you with little snippets of their pieces as we move throughout this season. And we're so happy to have them. I want to remind you that if you know of any gig workers, laborers, contractors, or low wage workers that you think need to be unmuted, please click on the link that Ariel has placed in the chat and share your story with Jasmin, either anonymously or not. So we will have more of these first looks coming for you throughout this year. From now through the end of the year, we are excited and we're working very, very hard to bring you content and bring you things to keep you engaged with us so that you know that we love you. We are starting up a few classes in about a week and a half. I am going to do my drama games class for 5 to 8-year-olds. So if you can promise me your children will not stand on tables and jump off while I'm trying to teach my class, you can enroll them. Yes, that did happen. Alex is laughing because he heard me when I said, I don't think your mom would want you on that table. And we're also going to have our Heidi is on our call, and she's going to be doing her improvisational class again. So please sign up. She gets rave reviews. So I may even take her class because I haven't been on stage in over a year and I need to get my chops wet. So thank you all again. Look forward to getting some information from us about what's coming next and our next first look. Alex, do you have anything you want to say to our lovely, oh, Nick, I love you and I love your baby.
Thank you all. It's Jasmin, JJ, thank you so much. I cannot wait to see you all on our stage. Until then, we'll see each other in these boxes for as long as it takes, but we miss you all. We love you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.